had triple-checked my tie in the elevator mirror. It still didn't look right. Like it knew I didn't belong in a building this clean, this sharp. I took a breath anyway, stepped out on the top floor of the Sterling Tech Tower, and walked into the reception area with the kind of confidence you only rehearse, not feel. The walls were glass, the lighting was warm and clinical at the same time, and everyone moved like they were late to something important. I was 26, freshly out of grad school, and this was my first real shot. A software analyst position at one of the most selective tech firms in the city. I had read every article about them. I'd stalked the leadership team on LinkedIn. I knew this interview could change everything. The receptionist barely looked up when I gave my name. "You're early," she said, as if it were a flaw. "Mr. Blackstone will see you in a moment." Blackstone, the CEO. I didn't expect him to be the one conducting the interview. In my head, CEOs didn't interview entry-level candidates. They didn't even remember our names. I sat down, trying to remember every bullet point on my resume, every fake confident line I'd practiced in the mirror. But then a voice came from behind the glass door. "Send him in." His office was sleek and full of angles, like it was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows on two sides overlooked the city like it belonged to him. The only art was a giant abstract painting in black, gray, and white. It looked like a storm trying not to break. He stood when I walked in. He was older than me by at least a decade, late 30s, early 40s maybe. Sharp navy suit, black shirt underneath, no tie. He had the kind of presence that made you stand straighter, like gravity pulled a little harder around him. And he looked at me, not just at me, but through me. His eyes didn't linger in one place. They scanned head to toe like he was trying to place me somewhere on a scale I didn't know existed. It wasn't crude. It wasn't even impolite. But it was intense. "You're Ryan Carter," he said, not reading from anything. "Columbia grad. Top 5%. Double internship at Mayfair and Quantino. Interesting." I nodded, unsure if I should thank him or correct him on anything. He didn't offer a handshake. He just gestured to the chair across from his. "You're not from New York originally, are you?" he asked. "No," I said. "Pittsburgh." He tilted his head, like that answered a question he hadn't asked aloud. The questions came fast, but none of them were what I expected. "What's the last book you read that made you feel something? Do you prefer night or morning? If I gave you a blank check, what would you build? Are you single?" That last one caught me off guard. I blinked. "Excuse me?" He smiled, not sheepishly, but like he knew it would catch me. It helps me understand where people's attention goes, how they balance connection and ambition. "I'm single," I said slowly, "but I try not to bring personal things into the workplace." He just nodded, watching me. The silence that followed was heavy, not awkward, but expectant. Like he wanted to see what I'd do next. I answered everything else as best I could. I told him about my passion for systems design, for efficient user flows, for breaking down complexity into clarity. I tried to keep my voice steady, tried not to notice how often his gaze returned to my mouth, or how his own smile flickered when I got animated. 30 minutes passed. Maybe more. Couldn't tell. When he finally stood, I did too. He didn't say, "We'll be in touch," or "Thanks for your time." He just said, "I don't usually do first interviews myself." "Oh," I said. "I hope that was a good thing?" His smirk deepened. "We'll see." I walked out, trying not to look back. As the elevator doors closed behind me, I realized something strange. He hadn't written down a single thing I said, but he hadn't looked away from me once. I didn't expect to hear back for at least a week. That's how these things usually go: radio silence, maybe a polite rejection, or if you're lucky, a second interview with someone from HR. But less than 4 hours after I walked out of that glass office, I got the call. Offer extended. Starting salary more than I expected. No second interview. No panel review. Just yes. I stared at the offer email, rereading it like it might disappear. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Welcome to Sterling Tech. You made quite an impression. AB." My heart skipped. AB, Alexander Blackstone, the CEO. It wasn't from HR. It wasn't from a recruiter. It was him, personally, texting me. I typed, "Thank you," twice and erased it both times before settling on. "Looking forward to contributing. Appreciate the opportunity." His reply came fast. "AB. Looking forward to seeing you around the building. Don't hide in your cubicle." That first week felt like I was walking through someone else's life. My badge opened every door. My desk had a setup better than any I'd had at school. Everyone in my department was sharp, focused, polite, but it didn't take long to realize I was being watched. Not in a creepy way. Not even in a bad way. But every time I passed a reflective surface, I checked. And sometimes I'd see him, the CEO, Alexander. One day, he passed by our workspace carrying 2 coffees. Only one had a name on it. He stopped beside my desk. "Double espresso, no sugar. Right?" I blinked. "That's exactly right. How did you?" He shrugged. "You mentioned it at the interview. Said it kept your brain sharper than green juice." I took the cup, hesitating. "Thanks. I didn't think you'd remember. I remember things that matter." Then he walked off before I could answer. Kept happening, those moments. Once, I stayed late working on a systems diagram that was kicking my ass. Around 8:45 p.m., the door opened. I looked up, expecting a janitor or security. It was him. "No tie." Jacket off. Sleeves rolled. He didn't say a word, just walked to the whiteboard beside me and started helping. He didn't tell me what to do. He asked questions. Smart ones. And when we cracked the final structure, he looked over at me, not like a boss, but like a man pleased to have someone keep up. "You work like someone who's trying to outrun something," he said. "I work like someone who doesn't want to fail." He gave a slow nod, then left. No good night. No compliment. Just gone. The tension was thick, but never explicit. Not once did he cross a line. Not once did he say anything I could report. But I could feel it, this unspoken something pulling at the edges of every conversation. I found myself thinking about him too much. His voice, his eyes, the way he always seemed 2 steps ahead, but never rushed. Still, I kept my head down. I told myself it was just attention, just flattery, just a man used to power making someone feel seen. Then, one night, Friday just after midnight, I was lying in bed, watching the ceiling fan spin, when an email came in. Subject, "Off the record." From alex.blackstone@sterlingtech.com. Body, "You're interesting. Not just sharp, layered. I like layered. Let's talk. No titles. No pressure. Just conversation. Off the record. I stared at it. It wasn't suggestive. It wasn't inappropriate. But it wasn't professional either. I sat up, reread it 4 times, and felt my pulse in my throat. Was I imagining this? Was it harmless? Or was it exactly what it sounded like? An invitation? Could have ignored it. Should have, maybe. But my fingers moved before my brain could argue. "Sure. When?" He replied almost instantly. "AB, tomorrow. 7:30. Coffee or something stronger, you choose." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. It wasn't professional. But I answered anyway. Saturday evening came too fast. I changed my shirt 3 times. Tried on cologne and then scrubbed it off. I wasn't even sure why I cared. It was just dinner, just a conversation, just something I shouldn't overthink. But every time I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a new hire. I saw a man about to sit across from the most powerful person at his job, for reasons that weren't printed on any meeting agenda. The car he sent wasn't ostentatious, but the driver knew my name. That was enough to set my pulse tapping against my ribs. The Rooftop restaurant was tucked away atop a boutique hotel, overlooking the river, the kind of place without signs, where the staff didn't ask for names because they already knew. Dim lighting, flickering candles, soft jazz curling through the air like smoke. He was already there when I arrived, seated at a corner table under a string of lights, sipping something amber from a heavy glass. His suit was charcoal gray this time, open collar, no tie. Relaxed but deliberate. He stood when he saw me. "You came," he said, not surprised, just pleased. I said I would. He didn't comment on how I looked, but his eyes did a quiet sweep, like they always did. Then he gestured to the chair across from him. "I hope this isn't too much," he said. "I figured we deserved a place where no one was watching." I nodded, trying not to let my nerves show. "This place feels private." "That's the point." Menus appeared, drinks were offered, but it was all background. The real exchange happened between questions, the ones that didn't belong in any office. He asked what I wanted to be as a kid. I told him I used to draw airplane blueprints in the back of math class, convinced I'd design the next Boeing jet. I asked him what made him build a company like Sterling Tech, and he said, "Control." "Over what?" I asked. "Chaos. Legacy. Myself. All of it." He talked more than I expected. About his childhood, cold father, distant mother, summers spent alone in boarding school libraries. How he taught himself to code because numbers didn't lie the way people did. How he built the company from nothing and lost sleep for a decade because he thought love and leadership couldn't coexist. "Do you still believe that?" I asked. He paused, gaze flicking over the skyline. "I stopped believing in absolutes," he said. "But I still don't give myself permission often." "To what?" He turned back to me, and something in his voice changed, softened. "To want something just because it makes me feel alive." My chest tightened. He didn't say you, but the implication sat between us like a candle burning low. "I don't do this," I said. "I mean dinners like this, not with someone who can control my paychecks." "I know," he said gently. "I'm not asking you to risk anything. Not tonight. Maybe not ever." I studied him. The way he held still when I spoke. The way he didn't push, didn't crowd. Just waited. "You're not what I expected," I said quietly. He smiled. "You walked into my office like a calm question I didn't know I wanted to answer." I looked down at the table. My wine glass trembled slightly in my hand. And then he reached for me. Slowly, deliberately. His fingers grazing the back of my hand. Not gripping, not possessive, just touching. It was warm, gentle, and I pulled away. Not out of fear. Not because it felt wrong. But because I wasn't ready. The air shifted. His hand retracted and he gave a single nod. I told him I wasn't sure what this was. He looked at me, steady, unshaken, and said, "That's fine. I can wait." I threw myself into work. Every meeting, every data set, every early morning and late night. I buried myself in tasks so I wouldn't have to think about rooftop dinners, or intense eyes, or the warm weight of a hand that I pulled away from too quickly. He didn't follow up. Not with more invitations. Not with late-night emails. Not even with lingering hallway glances. For a while, that made it easier. But not for long. Because no matter how hard I tried to focus, I saw him everywhere. In the way people cleared space when he entered a room. In how his team leaned in when he spoke. Like every word might shift the whole company's gravity. In how he made silence powerful. Not threatening, still. And yet, he always seemed alone. Not lonely exactly, but untouched. Like no one quite knew how to stand next to him without falling into orbit. It wasn't love. Not yet. I didn't even know what it was. But I knew I couldn't pretend I didn't feel it. Not forever. The shift happened late one Thursday, after a day that nearly broke me. I had spent a week preparing a systems proposal for a new rollout. 40 hours of design. 20 of testing. I walked into that conference room ready to prove something, and walked out gutted. Halfway through, the department head pulled the plug. Too complex. Too ambitious. Too expensive. I kept a professional face, thanked them for the feedback. But the moment I got back to my desk, my hands shook. I stayed long after the floor emptied, staring at my whiteboard, trying to rewrite a week's worth of effort into something salvageable. I didn't even hear the door open. "Still here?" he said, his voice low and even. I turned. He was standing by the doorframe, jacket off, sleeves rolled again. Like that first late night weeks ago. Like a pattern repeating. "I could ask you the same," I said. He walked in slowly, not imposing, just present. "You handled the pitch with restraint," he said, "even when they missed the point." "I didn't come here to get gold stars," I muttered. No, he said. You came here to matter. That stopped me. He stood beside the whiteboard, reading my half-erased diagrams. You were ahead of them, he said. That scares people. I shook my head. Or maybe I was just wrong. He looked at me. Really looked. Do you think I built this company by waiting for permission? His voice wasn't smug. It was tired. Honest. I let out a breath. You always sound so sure. I'm not. He paused. But I've learned not to flinch when I want something. I turned back to my desk. This is the part where you say something clever, and I'm supposed to follow your lead, right? No, he said. This is the part where I tell you the truth. Silence. Then, I don't use power to trap people. I just don't hide when I want something. I didn't look at him, but I felt it, the weight of that confession hanging in the air. My voice was quiet. What do you want from me? He stepped closer. Not touching. Not pushing. Just there. Not a night. Not a fling, he said. I don't chase novelty. He waited a beat, then added, I want to know if there's something real here. My chest tightened. No one had ever asked me that before. Not like this. He wasn't promising anything. He wasn't demanding either. He was standing in front of me, stripped of title, of polished command, of certainty. Just a man, asking. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't want to run. I told him we could have dinner, but only if it wasn't on a rooftop, in a hidden restaurant with 5 forks and an unspoken dress code. I told him I wanted something real. Simple. No armor, no titles. He didn't hesitate. Your place or mine? He asked. Mine, I said. And no suits allowed. That Friday, he showed up at my apartment 10 minutes early, holding a pizza box in one hand and a 6-pack of ginger beer in the other. He wore jeans. Not tailored slacks masquerading as casual. Real jeans. A little faded, slightly wrinkled. His sneakers were spotless, and his gray Henley stretched across his shoulders like it hadn't been worn in a long time. He looked out of place, and I liked that. I let him in. My place was modest. Couch I'd had since undergrad. Books stacked too deep on shelves. A coffee table covered in coasters I never used. He didn't comment. Just looked around like he was grateful to be let in, not just physically. We sat on the floor, cross-legged, plates balanced on our knees. He told me he hadn't eaten takeout on the floor since grad school. I told him I didn't trust a man who couldn't enjoy greasy food without linen napkins. He laughed. Really laughed. And something in his face shifted. Softer. Less guarded. Over the next hour, we talked. Really talked. He told me about a boy he once loved back in college. How he ended it before it could get serious, terrified it might derail his plans. How long did you regret that? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Still do, he finally said. Not because of him. Because of what I told myself mattered more. I told him about a guy who ghosted me in the middle of finals. How I thought we were something. How I didn't realize until later that I was just a distraction while he figured himself out. He saw you, Alexander said. He just didn't know how to value what he saw. It was quiet after that. The pizza was cold, the drinks mostly gone. He sat back, resting on his palms, eyes studying my ceiling like it held answers. I've built a life around certainty, he said. Structure, metrics, outcomes. But this. He turned his head toward me. You, he gave a dry laugh. You're the first thing in years I don't know how to control. And that terrifies me. I watched him. He was always so composed in the office, commanding, smooth, always a few steps ahead. But now, he fidgeted with the label on the bottle, bit his lower lip. His knee bounced slightly when he wasn't thinking about it. He wasn't a CEO in my living room. He was a man trying not to ruin something that mattered to him. I reached across the couch, slow, deliberate, and touched his hand. His eyes snapped to mine, and I leaned in. The kiss wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate or hungry or filled with fireworks. It was slow, unhurried. He moved like someone afraid to ask for too much, like he was waiting to be told it was okay. So I told him, with my hands, with the way I leaned closer, with the way I didn't pull away this time. When we finally broke apart, his forehead rested gently against mine. No words, just breath. He pulled back an inch, looked at me like he was seeing something fragile and rare. And I realized he wasn't the CEO in that moment. He was just a man who looked at me like I was worth waiting for. He was still there when I woke up. The sun peeked through the blinds, casting warm light across his shirt rumpled on the floor, and his arm draped over my waist like he'd never unlearned how to hold gently. He blinked awake, no panic in his eyes, no rush to dress or explain. Just a quiet smile and a hand that brushed my hair back before reaching for the ginger beer we never finished. We didn't say much that morning. He kissed my temple when he left, and that said enough. For the next few weeks, we lived two lives. At work, we were professional, borderline distant. His nods in the hallway were brief. His presence in meetings was sharp and neutral, never lingering. He didn't play favorites, didn't hover near my desk, didn't so much as brush shoulders in passing. But after hours, everything softened. Some nights it was dinner at my place. Other nights we sat in his townhouse, curled under a blanket, trading stories and trying to make each other laugh. We learned each other's patterns, the exact point when I got too in my head about work, the way he chewed on a pen cap when he was nervous, the fact that neither of us liked sleeping on the right side of the bed, but we figured it out anyway. Still, I'd be lying if I said it was easy. The dynamic was complicated. There were moments when I caught myself wondering what others saw, whether they'd think I'd earned my role or just happened to be the guy sleeping with the man upstairs. He never gave me a reason to doubt myself, though. In fact, he went out of his way not to interfere. Never offering favors, never suggesting promotions, never inviting me to meetings I didn't already belong in. But even unspoken things don't stay quiet forever. It happened on a Thursday. I was called into HR, a routine check-in, they said. But it wasn't casual. It was careful. Quiet questions asked behind closed doors, like they already knew but wanted me to confirm it. I didn't lie. They didn't lecture me either. Just reminded me of the company's policies, its culture of transparency, and the importance of disclosing anything that might create a conflict of interest. When I told him that night, he didn't flinch. He just listened, then said, "If this hurts your trajectory, I'll step back." I stared at him, this man who'd built an empire and still didn't hesitate to remove himself from my way if it meant I could move forward. "That's not what I want," I said. He reached for my hand. "I never want you to feel like I'm standing over you." I squeezed his fingers gently. "Then don't stand over me. Just stand beside me." There was silence between us, the kind that wasn't uncomfortable, just full, like we both knew we'd crossed a line. But it wasn't the wrong one. It was just ours now. And for the first time, I wasn't wondering what anyone else thought. Because it wasn't about power anymore. It was about trust. 3 months later, the Sterling Tech Ballroom was filled with people wearing their best versions of confidence. It was the company's 10-year anniversary. Champagne, spotlights, soft music, and polished shoes echoing on marble floors. The kind of corporate celebration that's equal parts performance and pride. I stood near the back, holding a glass I hadn't touched, watching the crowd swell with board members, team leads, engineers, and interns who had stayed late for a chance to feel part of something big. And at the center of it all, like always, was him, Alexander, commanding the room in a perfectly tailored suit, expression calm, eyes always moving. We hadn't gone public. Not really. A few people knew, HR, close friends, a couple of observant coworkers who'd learned not to ask questions unless they were ready for complicated answers. But we had stopped hiding, no longer erasing texts, no longer pretending we hadn't shared quiet mornings or soft arguments over takeout containers and tangled sheets. Still, in this room, under these lights, he was the CEO again. And I was just an analyst. Or at least I thought I was. Until he stepped up to the microphone. 10 years ago, he began. This company was just an idea on a napkin and a shot in the dark. We had 5 employees and no furniture. Now we have hundreds. And one very long couch on the 6th floor that no one can seem to get rid of. The crowd chuckled. He continued, thanking department heads, praising innovation, calling out a few inside jokes that made the engineers laugh a little too hard. Classic Alexander. Confident, composed, exactly the man they expected him to be. But then his tone shifted. He glanced toward the back, toward me. Success, he said, isn't just about code or systems or margins. It's about the people you build with. A pause. Some people join your company and change your balance sheet. He smiled slightly. Others change your life. The room fell still. He didn't say my name. He didn't have to, because for the first time he didn't look through me. He looked at me, held it, let it land. The applause came a few seconds later. Polite, warm, uncertain. People weren't sure what had just happened. A moment too personal for a crowd this corporate. But I didn't care, because I'd never felt more seen. Later that night, we sat on his balcony. City lights sprawling around us like a living constellation. I had kicked off my shoes, feet tucked beneath me, nursing the drink I had finally poured. He loosened his tie, resting an arm on the back of the couch behind me, not quite touching, but close enough. I meant every word, he said. I know. Too much. No, I said. Not enough, maybe. He looked at me. Not like the man who had once scanned me from behind a glass desk, but like someone who had memorized every line of my face. I didn't say it to pressure you, he added quietly. You never had to say yes. I needed you to know. I turned toward him, searching his expression. There was no demand in it. No urgency. Just patience. Like he'd already waited longer than I knew, and would keep waiting if I asked. I don't know what this becomes, I admitted. I still get nervous. Still question things. Still wonder if I'm screwing everything up. He nodded slowly. So do I. I smiled, small and real. But I don't want to go back. You won't. A long silence followed. The kind that doesn't ask to be filled. Just shared. And in that stillness, I finally understood something. He didn't need me to say yes right away. He just needed me to believe that maybe could.